And welcome back, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. This is Keeper from the Disciples Ride podcast, and I'm bringing you another episode of Keeper's Thoughts. Um, with this episode, I'm trying to go over a few things, and really, I'm just asking for your guys' patience. And I just want to start off with a little bit of scripture here. Psalms 37. Rest in the Lord and wait patiently for him. Fret not thyself because of him who prospereth in his way, because of the man who bringeth wicked devices to pass. So, with that being said, a lot of times I like to do things and I want to do them on my time frame. And I want to get things done. But sometimes we need to wait patiently for God to allow his work to come. We need to not fret ourselves. And we just need to learn to have patience. And with this episode, that's what I'm asking of my audience, of you guys, is to be patient with us. In Ecclesiastes 7:8, it says, "Better is the end of a thing than the beginning thereof, and the patient in spirit is better than the proud in spirit." So I'm really trying to be patient here. And what I'm getting to is I want to address something that I think is becoming somewhat of an issue. And going forward, I hope that we can get better at this. Now, my goal on this podcast is to, at minimum, bring you at least one episode a week, on top of doing this devotional series. And I do feel we're starting to lack in that department. I think most people know, this whole podcast is dedicated to spreading the gospel to the bike community and just to anyone who wants to have that conversation. Now, specifically with that being said, I think most people know that when spring kicks off, motorcycle season kicks off. When summer comes, we're running full throttle. And it's just going to get busier and busier and busier. Now, I am thankful God is giving us a lot of opportunities to mingle in that community, pass out tracks, and really have some great conversations. And I am so grateful for the opportunities that God has bestowed upon us. I do feel that this podcast is home base for me in Impact. I want to bring more of those conversations here onto this podcast. I never want to neglect this show. However, learning to manage our time and dealing with the distance, with travel, that part, I want us to get better at navigating through all of that. And just to kind of give you guys just an insight to some of the things that we deal with, trying to make this all come together. And this isn't a woe is me or asking for sympathy. I just kind of want to give you guys a little insight into some of the things that we deal with. Now, first and foremost, home base is in Fort Morgan for me. It's where I live. Now, Impact, he lives in Sterling, which is about a 45-minute drive away from here. And I just want to say thank you to Impact, because he's been the one that's been navigating this, and he's been the one that's been driving from Sterling to Fort Morgan to come do these episodes. That's time, gas, energy for him to come out here and dealing with some of the stuff that he's been dealing with in life, in his relationship. I'm so thankful for him for doing that, and I never want to overlook that. I'm grateful that God put him in my life, and that he's been making those sacrifices for this show, and he's been so faithful to doing that, and I just want to say thank you to him for that. Now, both of our towns that we live in are based out of Northeast Colorado. And if you know anything about Northeast Colorado, about the towns out here, the area, the landscape, there's not a whole lot going on out here. This is primarily a farm and agriculture country. So a lot of farmers, small businesses, that kind of towns, which I love. I lived in Denver, I lived in Aurora, lived in big cities, but I prefer these small towns. Now, as far as the biker community, there is a lot of people that ride out here. Unfortunately, there's not a lot of activities for bikers out here. A lot of activities and rides they're based off of motorcycle dealerships or poker runs, which are at the bars. There's no motorcycle dealerships out in this area. Most biker events are towards the Front Range, which consists of Denver, Loveland, Greeley, all the way down to Colorado Springs. Um, with the exception of the Springs, most of those areas that we ride to are an hour plus away. The Springs is a few hours away, and yes, we've gone down there, and we've talked about that on prior episodes. These trips take a lot of time and energy, um, and there's no way around it. And that's just something me personally, I've accepted that fact a few years ago when I first started joining CMA and started seeing what we had to do for the ministry to go out. I accepted the fact that anything that we do, we're going to have to ride an hour away just to take part in the event, and then obviously there's an hour ride back home. That's something I've accepted a few years ago. So just to give you an example, this past Saturday, we went down to John Alway Harley Davidson, which is in Greeley, and that was an awesome trip. I loved seeing Impact pass out tracks and even gave out some of our podcast stickers. It just and just seeing those things, seeing his growth, that's been really awesome. We went with a few of the guys, and all of us had some conversations. Um, we spent probably 3 hours mingling around there. It was an awesome trip. So, plus the hour ride there, the hour ride back, that's a long day for us. All of us have families, and even with Impact, he lives even further away. So that's more of a 6 to 7 hour day for him. Needless to say, we didn't get an episode out that day. And then even prior to that, the weekend before, that's when we had our Run for the Sun ride, which is a national ride for CMA. At minimum, we have to ride 100 miles to go towards national. Our president of our local chapter opted to have us hook up with the Laramie, Wyoming chapter, so that was a ride in itself. We rode all the way out there and then participated with their 100-mile run. I think that day I put over 400 miles on the bike myself. And Impact, he lives further out, so he put closer to 550 to 600 miles, if I'm correct. And, Wyoming is super beautiful and nice. But with Wyoming comes a lot of wind. So we were fighting that pretty much the entire time, which can get a little bit tiring. So at the end of the day, we were just kind of worn out, stressed, and we did not get a chance to get an episode out. Now this coming Saturday, I don't know if we're going to be able to get an episode out as well. Impact is actually in the process of moving, but if there's an opportunity that we can, I would definitely love that opportunity to get with him if there's time in his day. To get an episode out, that'd be pretty awesome. But I just don't want to make any promises and kind of go from there. One of the other verses that I kind of thought of here was Romans 12:12, rejoicing in hope, patient in tribulation, continuing instant in prayer. And so that's something that I want us to focus on, is rejoicing in the hope. We need to rejoice in the hope of Jesus Christ, but we also need to be patient in tribulation. Now, not that we're going through anything that I would say is tribulation-wise, but we do need to be patient when that tribulation does come. Um, One of the things that I'm learning to deal with, for me personally, is I had a big schedule change at work. I am now working graveyards, and so my internal clock is like out the window right now. So I'm trying to be patient with this new shift. I'm hoping I don't stay on it forever. I'm working on trying to get off of it, but it and patient in tribulation. I'm trying to. I don't always understand the reasonings why everything happens, but there's God's will in it somewhere, and I'm trying to be patient with learning that. And as the rest of the verse says, continuing instant in prayer. So I'm really trying to work on my prayer life, because sometimes it's hard to be prayerful, especially when you're going through some stuff. But that's something I definitely need to work on a little bit more, is my prayer life. And uh, I'm also trying to. This whole episode is about being patient, but we also need to be cautious when asking for patience, because, and this is something I'm learning more and more. Asking and praying for patience, God's going to give you a lot of opportunities to learn to patience. So, need to be careful there. Now, just kind of moving forward, I do want to try to get some more guests on here. I've talked to Sparks, who's our president. He's eager to come on here. I'm hoping to get a pastor to come on here. I think that would be great. I'm really praying that this show grows more and more. But I do recognize that we do need to get better, and we do need to get more consistent in putting out content. Not even just on the podcast episodes, but also in the devotionals as well. So again, I am asking for your guys' patience and prayers as we go forward and we try to navigate these roads, and I pray for consistency. We need to get better for the gospel to get out. At the end of the day, that is our goal, is to get the good news to those who need to hear it. That's something that from the start of the show, that has always been the goal, is to get the gospel out, get the good news out to those who need to hear it. And I do want to thank you guys for tuning in. That's kind of my rant for the day. And the next devotional that I do, I'm definitely going to try to bring an uplifting message. So with that being said, I just want to say God bless. And I look forward to the next episode. Thank you guys.